Disclaimer. Due to the graphic nature of effects of venomous snake bites on humans, viewer discretion is advised for the following program.
Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Mark Perlmutter for our fourth, I believe, in a series in our show Call the Doctor. And today's show is going to be on snake bites. It's the season for snake bites, and we have a special guest today, Dr. Sean Bush and his daughter, Camille. And correct, Camille?
Yes, sir.
And we have Camille's daughter with us too, Cornelius, I believe.
Cornelia.
Yeah, she's a corn snake, a non-venomous constrictor. She's adorable. I met Sean taking care of his hand. He has an injury that I took care of. In a reverse house call, I believe it was. Yeah.
That's right.
And Sean used to run a TV show in California called Venom ER. He's an absolute expert on snake bites. And so tell us a little bit more about you, Sean.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I'm kind of obsessed with snakes and snake bites. I've had a lot of interest in snakes my whole life and career, and I like to talk about them a lot. So I really appreciate you inviting me on the show to talk about snakes and snake bites.
So we were planning this show for, well, probably a month now,
Yeah.
or maybe a little bit longer. And I'm driving out of my driveway today, and I live on a lake. I have never seen a snake on my property in 8 years. The previous owners told me they've never seen a snake. And so I thought for some reason a waterfront property without snakes is unusual. Perhaps it's from the feral cats in our area. Driving out today, and I see a snake across my road. I take a picture of it. I think we actually have a picture of it I sent to our production crew here. Maybe you can put that up. This is a picture I took this morning at 6:30 driving out, and you can see from the angle, the shadow, it's early, and in this cottonmouth.
No,
what is it?
It's a copperhead.
Copperhead,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
copperhead. So I shoot a picture and I sent it to Sean and said, what is this thing warming up in the sun? Snakes are a class of animals called pulchiotherms. I can spell it, but I can't say it. That their body temperature is a function of the ambient temperature. So it's climbing onto the warm asphalt to get its body temperature up first thing in the morning. And then to save it from being run over, I actually opened up a coat hanger and scooted it into my neighbor's yard. Sorry, Ann. But I did call her and tell her to let her know that it's there. What do you do when people find a snake in the yard?
So okay, I think first of all that's a good picture of the copperhead. We're going to show you some more copperheads here, and it's a very distinctive looking snake. It's a pit viper, and it's really common. It's the most common people biting snake in North Carolina.
You said pit viper. Explain that.
Well, it's a pit viper because it has this heat sensing pit in its face that helps it to locate prey, for instance, like a mouse that it might be tracking to eat.
They're temperature sensors.
That's right.
So they can not only see and smell and taste with their tongue that they spit out regularly. They have an additional organ that most other snakes do not have, right between their eye and their nose, and it's on either side, and they can detect temperature differences in their environment. And they call that a pit. And it goes to a special part of the brain that detects temperature, like special parts of our brain are occupied by cells that come from our eyes or our nose. So it's a highly specialized type of snake that detects heat.
Helps the snake find food, and of course, we're heat-emitting organisms too, and so it helps it kind of refine its strike, on a defensive strike too.
So you find this snake on your property.
Yeah, so, and anybody who knows me knows that I don't like to hear, I killed a snake story. I don't like to hear people killing snakes. And copperheads, look, they're not that dangerous. They're dangerous enough to get you to the ER and need some anti-venom, but they're not so dangerous that you need to kill every one you come across. There's a lot of them. I mean, and it's almost impossible to kill all the copperheads that you come across in North Carolina. So I would prefer people just, take a tool like a shovel and scoop them into a large Rubbermaid container, and then maybe somebody, and put the lid on and maybe have somebody take them somewhere far but not too far so that they can live someplace else, or I told Dr. Perlmutter, I said, if you want me to take that copperhead off your hands, I'll bring it to the show tonight. And so we could have done something with that copperhead, but I think he scooped into his neighbor's yard instead, which is fine.
Snakes have a valuable role. Tell us about that.
Absolutely, snakes have a valuable role. I mean, for one thing, snakes certainly are important in rodent control and vector control. They eat a ton of mice out there, and mice carry disease. They're part of the balance of nature. They're fascinating. Everybody has a snake story, and they're just cool to come across. And I'm a big snake enthusiast, and I think that they're just interesting in their own right.
So people are naturally scared of things they don't understand. Look at the large portion of our population that's afraid of a vaccine that's 1,000% safe. And they're steering themselves towards potentially their death by not taking a vaccine. And so we're going to start taking some calls, but I want you to, as we answer calls, really stress people's fears.
Yeah.
And that animals like this are part of nature and don't necessarily have to die because we don't understand them. So our first call is from Kelly. She's from my old stomping grounds in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Kelly, what's your question?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. First of all, I want to thank you, Sean, and everybody else that's taking your professionalism to teach us uneducated people. One thing I'm learning is when somebody comes across a snake, they're asking for people to come relocate them. And I keep reading to try to relocate them fairly close to where you found them. And you just hit the nail right on the head. Boy, would I love you being my neighbor that you just put a copperhead in my yard. Thank you very much. Is there a particular reason why they are saying you should, if you're going to relocate them to the general area where they've been located?
Well, so that's a good question. And the question is about, if you find a snake in your yard, where do you relocate it? And there's been a lot of studies done on long distance and short distance translocation of snakes. If you translocate them too far, the snake just beats itself up trying to get back to its old home range where it lives. And the survival rate is very low. It's like less than 20% in some studies. But if you relocate the snake too short a distance, it just crops back up in your property. I think some snakes adapt to translocation better, like maybe neonates, like newborn snakes. And there's a lot of those around, but I think that if you've got a snake like a copperhead in your yard, I think it's controversial to say, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, I mean, there's probably other copperheads in your yard too. And, my son was bitten by a venomous snake, by a rattlesnake in our backyard. Now that was, a rattlesnake can kill a person. Copperhead probably can't. And we've got a good treatment for it. So I'm not worried about there being copperheads in the yard. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I was calling in for the
I think we got another question, though. I hope that answered your question. I hope it didn't go on and on too much.
So we have a caller. Can we have your question? Hello?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
We can. What's your first name?
Hey, yes, this is Beth Raspberry.
And what's your question?
Okay. This is Beth Raspberry. So
I was calling because Dr. Bush was actually my son's doctor when he got bit about 8 years ago. And so I was calling to share my experience.
Okay, that's very nice of you. And where was your son bit?
He was bit on the back of his right calf. He's 10 years old, and he got bit in our backyard while he was playing with his brother.
Okay.
So this is Beth Raspberry. I took care of her son whenever he was bitten by a copperhead, and I think probably the thing I remember about that encounter was his brother, Ashton's brother, had put a tourniquet really tight on him, and it was so tight that it was almost cutting his circulation off, you know. And I remember when y'all came in, he was in pain from the snake bite, and he was in pain from the tourniquet, and we had to be careful about taking the tourniquet down because we didn't want to release a bolus of venom into his bloodstream. And so we wanted to make sure we got anti-venom going before we slowly release the tourniquet. Now, meanwhile, this tourniquet is causing him so much pain. And I don't know, Beth, if you remember that, but it was very stressful for like the first, 20 minutes of him being there. It was very stressful.
It was. I remember that, and it was one of those things where, growing up, his dad and I both, that's what we had always been taught to do, was to put a tourniquet on. And so his brother that was with him, that's what we always told them, because living in eastern North Carolina, you're going to come across copperheads. That's just something that's going to probably happen. And so my boys knew this is what you do in a situation like that. So his older brother did exactly what he was taught to do. And what we did as soon as it happened, it was within a minute. It started turning purple, and we were able to take him to the hospital. And on the way, I called. So when we got there, everybody in the emergency room, it was like, eyes on him and getting the care. And of course, Dr. Bush was there to help with that and gave excellent care to him. But yeah, I do remember, and that was an issue in itself, was releasing it in time. And I remember you mixing the anti-venom and when it was given to him, and then releasing the tourniquet, so that it was almost like watching it in action, as they met each other and just kind of dissolved that.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question. I presume a tourniquet is the right thing to do.
No. So that's the thing, is a lot of these things that people used to recommend are no longer recommended. And even the Boy Scouts used to recommend cutting and sucking. Well, we studied that, and it doesn't work. It can make it a lot worse, and so we don't recommend it anymore. I mean,
it doesn't taste good either.
That's exactly. It doesn't taste good. It's not good on your GI tract. So that's why I feel like you need a show like this to get the word out there, so that people don't continue to do like antiquated first aid techniques like applying a tourniquet. We don't recommend tourniquets for any snake bites in the United States. Not a tourniquet.
Okay, so then you get bit.
Yeah.
You're a half hour away from an emergency room. You just hightail to the yard. Nothing you can do at your house is beneficial.
So, venomous snake bite, that's right. That's right. So venomous snake bite is a medical emergency. There's no effective first aid, unfortunately. So I always tell people that's a good time to call 911. When you're bitten by a venomous snake, I recommend you call 911, because, snake venom is comprised of digestive enzymes. In nature, snake venom is used to digest prey. It digests humans too when it gets injected. And the sooner you can give antivenom, the sooner you can stop digestion, and then you can heal from that. So call 911, go to the emergency department, and get treated with antivenom.
Does every ER have antivenom for the common snake bites that would be experienced in North Carolina?
So I think every ER should have antivenom, but the fact is sometimes they don't, because antivenom is really expensive. It costs, some antivenoms are upwards of like $3,000 a vial, and a starting dose is 4 to 6 vials. It can run up your hospital bill really quickly. So, and it's expensive to stock adequate antivenom.
And it probably doesn't last very long on the shelf.
Antivenom has like a 3.5 year shelf life, depending on the brand you use, and you got to reconstitute it. It takes a few minutes to do that. But that's the treatment for snake bite, is anti-venom.
Would it be something if an ER does not have anti-venom in stock that they would automatically have protocols to fly you up by helicopter to someplace that does?
Yeah, so certainly if you went to a small, and this is a dangerous area, because if you went to a small ER and they didn't have anti-venom and you had to be transported, I mean, certainly the patient could deteriorate en route. And that's why I think even these small emergency departments around like North Carolina, they should have anti-venom, because the quicker the better, generally speaking. And especially with a rattlesnake bite, I mean, you can think, we can show you a video clip of a rattlesnake bite and you can see how severely bad it can get quickly. This video clip, when you're ready to cue it up and show it, will show you one of the worst rattlesnake bites I've ever seen, and this guy was like this within like 5 minutes of being bitten by about a 3-foot long rattlesnake.
Which is about the size of the snake that I saw today.
Yeah.
So, what other measures would an ER do, and is it worth the time waiting for a helicopter? Like overhydrate you, start an IV, any medications like steroids or anything that they can do if they are absent of venom?
Well, and the other thing, and the other thing is, while you're being transported, medics will start taking care of you already. If you call 911 after a venomous snake bite, what can happen is the medics, everybody starts communicating. Medics get dispatched. They come out there, they see you, they start an IV. When my son was, I remember being on the receiving end of this, and it's a well-oiled machine. The medics come out, they start an IV, and they transport you rapidly to where anti-venom can be given. And if you're going to pass out en route or something, you're going to pass out in the back of an ambulance as opposed to driving your car. If the most expeditious way is to transport by air, I mean, we got air ambulances all over North Carolina and where I used to practice in California too. And it's good to be expeditious when you can, as expeditious as possible. And there's other things you can do en route. Like they can make sure that there's anti-venom at the receiving facility. Maybe, the receiving facility can start, if they haven't seen a snake bite in a while, maybe they can start trying to find the anti-venom, get it out, get it ready to go. And here's that clip I was talking about of that really bad rattlesnake bite. This was back when we were doing Venom ER. And there's the puncture wound on his finger. And I don't guess you can hear the audio, but this guy was bitten by a rattlesnake. Within 5 minutes, he was totally incapacitated, having trouble breathing, bleeding all over, sweating profusely. He was bleeding from his nose. He couldn't breathe, so we had to put a tube down his throat. And then he's having these muscle fasciculations, twitching all up and down his legs.
And these are uncontrolled fasciculations.
Uncontrolled fasciculations, yep. So all that muscle twitching, and he did that for days. Yeah.
And this is with somebody who got urgent care pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, they immediately called 911, and I was saying right there that it's the worst snake bite I had ever seen, and you can see, now he bled everywhere except for into his brain, and he survived, and he did well. But I show the video clip because just to show you how bad it can get quickly, and it's better to find that out at the hospital rather than trying to drive to the hospital through traffic or whatever. That's why I say call 911.
Right. So you're working at Wake Med right now?
Yeah.
In the emergency room. Wake Med runs Nash's emergency room. They do a phenomenal job. I'm not sure if we have anti-venom at Nash. I know that they don't have it at some of the Vidant satellites, but I would bet that, and this is a rhetorical question, most level 1 trauma centers, which are a helicopter ride away, probably do have antivenom.
For sure. Places like the Vidant, like Brody School of Medicine, Vidant Medical Center in Greenville, and then there's Duke and UNC Chapel Hill. These places are areas where there's special expertise in snake bites. They got my buddy Chuck Gerardo works at Duke. And they got Ben German at Wake Med. They got Eric Toshlag and Bill Meggs over at Vidant.
The point being that even if you went to Nash's emergency room, for example, you're going to be dealt with exceptional ER doctors and nurses and the trauma receiving teams. They know what they have in stock. They know what they don't have in stock. They know how to call a helicopter. And before the ambulance even gets to your ambulance or your car actually gets to the emergency room bay, that air ambulance, the helicopter is probably fired up and ready to go. And the receiving hospital is already going to be aware that you're going to be there in 20 minutes helicopter time. So making that telephone call like your patient did do was the single smartest thing that she could do. Your point about making that call immediately starts a well-organized set of wheels turning that you don't know about behind your back. There are protocols in place that will save the life of your loved one if you act quickly.
That's right. That's right. You know, and we see a lot of bites in North Carolina. North Carolina is the state that has the most snake bites. Now, a lot of those are copperhead bites, and the acuity is lower than, say, you know, in rattlesnake country like in Arizona or some parts of California. But it's a lot of snake bites, you know, and so these doctors get quite a bit of experience. And you're in good hands. There's a lot of research going on in places like Duke and Chapel Hill and over at Vidant. So you're in good hands. And they also have resources like the Poison Control Center they can call and contact if they have questions. So sometimes it's not what you know, but it's how fast you can find the answers.
That's probably the single most critical factor, wouldn't you think?
Right, yeah.
So.
Okay, we need
Okay.
a break. We need to take a break.
Okay, so we're going to take a break now, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. Please call in. Thank you, Beth.
Serve you in your time of need, and we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
Harper's Garden and Stone Center, your one-stop shop for all your gardening and landscaping needs. All you need is your imagination, and Harper's Garden and Stone Center can supply the materials to make the job the success you want it to be. We have flowers, plants, trees, decorative stones, slate or flagstone. Enjoy the nice spring weather with Pauley's Island Furniture and our Wilmington Grills. We now offer select hard-to-find fishing tackle for the avid fisherman along with Calcutta fishing gear. Also visit Wendy's Hole in the Wall Boutique and shop for the whole family. Shoes, Vera Bradley bags, and Simply Southern apparel. Harper's Garden and Stone Center, located at 2145 Oak Level Road, open Monday through Saturday, rain or shine.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
I'm Robert Crescione. I'm back with American Danger because now more than ever, our country is threatened by things that affect the very root of our nation. We'll be talking about those things on America in Danger in the weeks to come. Join us each week for America in Danger, 6:30 Saturdays on WHIG TV, because these issues matter to you.
Local businesses in Wilson, Nash, and Edgecombe counties have something to share with you.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Miller with P.O. Woodard & Company. Come and see us for all your lawn and garden and power equipment needs. If we don't have it, you don't need it.
Oh, hi. Welcome to Lillian Lane. I'm Terry. Glad you're here. Looks like spring has finally arrived, and we have got everything that you need to stay cool and fashionable throughout the season, no matter what the occasion. Come check us out. You'll be glad you did.
Brought to you by WHIG and these fine businesses.
Welcome back to Call the Doctor and our guest Cornelius and the Bushes. We have a call on the line from Mrs. Berkowitz, and she has a very succinct question. It's very intelligent. Serene, why don't you ask your question to the audience?
Sure. I'm just wondering what to look for. What are the early signs if someone is bitten by a snake? I have a 12-year-old that is allergic to bug bites, and I didn't know if they were more susceptible, and what should I look for, and how would I know if it's venomous?
Oh, that's a good question, Shireen. So, some of the first signs to look for are swelling. You know, like, so what happens is, in fact, I'll tell you a story. So, in fact, do you remember when your brother Jude was bitten by the snake? Yeah. So this happened. So her brother, this is my daughter Camille. Her brother Jude got bitten by a snake when he was about 2, and we actually reenacted that for a show on Untold Stories of the ER. But I remember, I wasn't home when that one happened, but like a couple of months earlier, or weeks earlier, another neighbor had been bitten, and so I got to see his snake bite like really shortly after he got bit. So sometimes you can't even see the fang punctures, but then shortly thereafter it starts to kind of progress, and so it starts to swell and bruise, and you may have some bleeding. So that's what you look for. And some people are allergic to snake venom, but not many people are allergic to snake venom. You can have some allergic-like reactions to snake venom, but you know, a lot of people are allergic to bees, right? And more people get bitten and stung, or more people get stung by bees than bitten by snakes, and you see a lot more allergic reactions to bees than to snakes. But thanks for that question, Shereen. That was a good one.
Most of the tissue damage from a venomous bite is actually tissue necrosis.
That's correct.
Right. We have another guest joining us today. Does this little fellow have a name?
Yeah. So, well, what would you call this snake, Camille?
I don't know, we never really named him.
We didn't really name it. I feel very impersonal, but this is, so I bought a copperhead that we can show, and we're going to show some close-ups of the copperhead, right? And I like to show the copperhead, I like to show the copperhead kind of like close to the corn snake, because you can kind of see that they're very different snakes, especially when you get, can we come over there? And okay, let's come over here and get really close up, because, you know, on the tube, whenever you're ready to switch to the thing. Yeah, so you can definitely see that these snakes are different. And so the copperhead, I mean, they just have a very distinctive look.
Very triangular head.
Well, yeah. The head, and so all these features are kind of like individually, they're kind of hard to appreciate. But you know, if you see enough copperheads, you'll recognize them. And so, but you know, I mean, sometimes they have a little pattern down their side. It looks kind of like Hershey's Kisses down their side. I don't know if you can appreciate that on the video or not. Corn snakes don't have that. And of course, they have this two-tone copper color, and of course, the color varies a lot. But I don't know, you should look at a lot of them. You live in copperhead country, you ought to know what a copperhead looks like. So here's one, and we posted a picture earlier, and we can post more later on too. But anyway, copperhead and corn snake. I don't know how well you can see that, but there they are. And we'll let this guy slip back into here. And he'll take a little while to do that. Not too long. It's like ketchup, right?
It's like ketchup.
We'll come back to that. Okay. Oh, and that's the other thing is, so, people always ask me what you need to kind of get the snakes out. And so here's like a tool, and this is basically, there's a lot of golfers in North Carolina I found. I don't golf, but a lot of people get bitten on the golf course. So here's a golf club that's been co-opted into a snake hook, and I think that's really cool. And you can kind of scoop the snake into the Rubbermaid container and take it away from danger. I'm gonna go put this snake up and y'all
You don't
carry
have
on.
to have that though. I mean, if you're on the golf course, your putter would do just fine.
That's right.
For me, a coat hanger worked perfectly today. Anything that will, with a reasonable distance, which is at least the length of the snake, keep you at a safe distance from the business end of the snake. You can hook it and relocate it to a safer environment. We have another guest behind us today. So can you bring her up a little bit closer so we can see her? And tell us a little about your other pet.
So this is a hognose snake. Hognoses are just like straight black, and they have a little, I don't know if you can see very well, but they have like a little flick in their nose where they get their name. Hognoses are not venomous, so it's very easy to mistake them for other just like straight black snakes. They have venom in their rear fangs, so unless you're a mouse being digested, you're probably not going to have to deal with their venom at all. If a hognose snake were to bite you, he won't, or she's very sweet, so she won't. But if a hognose snake were to bite you, there would be no venom deployed because of those rear fangs. So unless she's on your hand and she's chewing and she's gnawing for a long time, you're not going to be affected by any of that venom.
So those are just digestive enzymes that are released in the back of the mouth, the same way that our mouths do the same thing.
Exactly.
Right. So, and no need to feel to destroy this animal either.
Right, right.
So, tell us about baby snakes. Come on back to us and tell us about baby
absolutely. So, thank you, Camille. And the other thing you'll notice about that snake is, it's black. Oops, I think I squeezed off the screen a little bit. It's black. So in North Carolina, a lot of snakes, people call a lot of snakes black snakes, and this snake just happens to be black in color, but there's also black rat snakes, and there's black racers. There's a whole bunch of snakes, and so it's very colloquial to say black snake. And your question about the baby snakes, a lot of people have this misconception that baby rattlesnakes can't control their venom, or they're more toxic than the adults. And I think that from a doctor, from a physician standpoint, it's the big rattlesnakes that cause the most tissue injury in the patients that I see. A big rattlesnake can really hurt you, and the babies just have a really minuscule amount of venom comparatively.
And the penetration of the fang is substantially less deep.
Right. A lot of smaller snakes smaller than about 1.5 feet, 18 inches long, they can barely even bite through denim jeans, and they can't get above a boot line. So big snakes are far more dangerous than the little snakes, and baby snakes, even though there's a popular urban legend about that.
Baby snakes ever chase people? There's a lot of people who are afraid if they get within a region of a snake that if they don't kill it, it will chase me.
Right. So in North Carolina, there's a big sort of belief that cottonmouths will chase you, and they don't. Cottonmouths don't chase you. And so I go to this place with my buddy Fred Boyce, and he takes me to this place called Cottonmouth Acres, close to the Croatan, and that place is rife with copperheads. There's a lot of them. Not one of them has ever chased me. In fact, usually if I get close to them, they beat it and they go the other direction, and they're fast. They're surprisingly fast.
Let me take this call coming in. So Leland?
No, Mark.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Mark, this is Jean Kitchen. I just talked to Dr. Lee Isley, and he said we definitely do at Nash UNC always have anti-venom.
There you go. So you can get superb ER care for your snake bite right in your backyard. Exceptionally well-trained ER doctors, an exceptionally well-trained reception team. The nurses are amazing, the best I've ever worked with. And any of the things that we talked about tonight can be dealt with right in your backyard. Perfect. Jean, thank you so much for making that connection for us. So still call 911, still get the wheels turning before you do absolutely anything else. Tell us about any type of first aid kits that are sold at drugstores.
Okay. I brought some of those. So I'll pull some of those out, right?
Okay. The reason why I asked this, as I walked through my drugstores in Arizona last weekend where I was at to get my Shingrix vaccination, I knew that this talk was coming up, and I just perused what's for sale for snake bites. There's an amazing amount of for-profit baloney out there. And it is baloney. It's snake oil, literally snake oil salesmen, and it's probably $1 billion industry gearing on your fears. The danger of these are that they delay your presentation to an emergency room. And so let's show us some of these.
Yeah, okay, so there's been a whole lot of different sort of first aid techniques, but one of them is this whole cutting and sucking, these kits, like these kind of kits, and they don't help. In fact, they can make the injury worse. And so we've kind of, even this summer, we're kind of getting on a campaign to say, look, don't like put a suction cup on a snake bite. It doesn't help. Don't be reassured by that, and it can cause further injury. And I've studied this myself personally, and so I just want to say that this kind of first aid is not good. It's not helpful for snake bite.
It's actually destructive because it's going to delay your presentation to qualified doctors in the Nash ER.
Well, and on top of that, these things exert so much suction that they can actually add injury to the snake bite. Right. And so, we don't want to do that. I think that sometimes people get a little overzealous when there's a snake bite, and like if they feel like a little ice helps the discomfort a little bit. Well, for a while they were advocating cryotherapy. You immerse the extremity in ice, and that adds frostbite to the snake bite. So you don't want to do anything that's going to make it worse. You don't want to cut into the snake bite.
The thinking would be that we can vasoconstrict or squeeze down the blood vessels and stop the spread of the venom. Purely bunk. The right answer is strictly to get to the anti-venom, and the right answer is to get to the ER where they have the anti-venom.
That's right. That's right.
And Dr. Isley informed us today via Jean that our ER is up to speed and capable of dealing with these issues.
Good.
So 911, let the ambulance transport your family member because they can start resuscitation right away, and you can't do that in your car. We have another caller. Welcome to Call the Doctor. Hello, do you have a question? Oh, we lost them. I love the backpack. I camp a lot.
Yeah.
What do I do if I'm really remote and there's no 911?
This is a good question, and it's by far the most common question I get. Like, what do I do if I'm bitten by a snake, like deep in the wilderness? And it's a really good question, and I want to study that some more. But so far, what we found is there's really nothing in the field that helps, in terms of first aid. I mean, you can do things like, if you're bitten, you can take off your rings and your watches. You can do things like you can call and 911 or summon help through a radio or whatever you have. And ultimately, the answer to that question is you need to do whatever it takes to get yourself to anti-venom, to medical care where you can get anti-venom. And even if you have to hike out, is it going to hasten the spread of the venom? Well, sure, yeah, but...
You mean your muscular activity and your exercise?
Exactly. So your muscular activity will hasten the spread of the venom, but the only thing that's been shown to really reduce mortality and to even help with reduce tissue destruction is anti-venom. And so you need to reduce the amount of time that it takes to get you there. So as expeditiously as safely possible, get to medical care, however you need to do that, be it via helicopter, air ambulance, however you can get out, that's what you got to do. Bottom line, get to medical care.
Okay, we're going to take our second break and then return for the last portion of Call the Doctor. Thank you.
Okay.
Totally love this.
Hi, I'm Kevin Zander with Don's Body Shop of Rocky Mount and Auto Body of Wilson. This year's been tough on everyone. We've lost some freedoms that we've all grown accustomed to. Many have lost their finances this year. Some have even lost their friends or their family members. It's not easy, but as we move forward together, I pray that we don't lose our faith. Faith in each other, faith in community, faith in one nation under God, faith in love, and faith to overcome as the struggles and the challenges arise. So on behalf of Don's Body Shop, Auto Body of Wilson, and all the local businesses that make our community better, we say thank you for your support. And I pray that we put faith over fear, and we once again prove that love will overcome. And with local love from you, we can all move forward together.
Hi, Jerry here at the Tar River Flea Market, where you can find just about anything you want or need. From appliances to lawn equipment, from musical instruments to watches, from jeans to handcrafted jewelry, from pots to peanuts and popcorn, from electronics to ice cream, from coins to fragrant burning oils. The Tar River Flea Market has 40,000 square feet of indoor shops, 12 acres of outdoor vendors. Open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 9 to 5. Highway 301, South Rocky Mountain. See you there.
Welcome back to Call the Doctor for the third part of our show. A few more questions for you. What are the most venomous snakes in North Carolina?
Yeah, so we have around this part of North Carolina, we can find some timber rattlesnakes. There's copperheads everywhere. So the proportion of copperheads to timber rattlesnakes, as you get around the Research Triangle and the Piedmont area, it's almost all copperheads. Out here in the east, you get occasional timber rattlesnake bite, just a couple of those bites per year. They're not rare, but they're not common. Even east and kind of more coastal, you'll get some cottonmouths out there. There's also pygmy rattlesnakes in around Goose Creek in that area.
Let me interrupt you for just a second.
Absolutely.
We have a caller coming in. Hello, caller. Thank you for calling Call the Doctor. What's your question?
My question is, does a poisonous snake bite require a certain specific antivenom for that particular snake, or is antivenom across the board good for all snakes?
That's a really excellent question. In fact, we have a little toy here to help demonstrate what antivenom really is and how it works. And then once we demonstrate that, give us an example or answer this question specifically. Does the antivenom that's at NASH cover all snake bites?
So there's 2 antivenoms that are basically FDA approved for all North American pit vipers. There's a separate antivenom for coral snakes that occur like in the southern part of the snake and sort of more in the south eastern part of the United States. But antivenom is basically, like a lot of antivenoms are derived from immunoglobulins, and so an immunoglobulin is a Y-shaped molecule, and venom, and what it does is basically it binds to the venom, and then it neutralizes it and facilitates the elimination from the body.
So when the antivenom comes into the antibody, it renders it ineffective by binding it.
That's right.
And then your body naturally gets rid of it.
That's exactly right.
So this is what's in the bottle in the emergency room.
Well, this.
Well, okay, right.
This is supposed to be venom, right?
This is the venom. And so we inject this, they're bound together, and they're rendered useless, and the body excretes it.
And there's antivenoms. These are like, you can divide up this molecule and you can make it to where, it's more, it clears in a different sort of pharmacokinetics, but that's probably beyond the scope of this lecture. But yeah, this is a whole immunoglobulin, but you can use just parts of this immunoglobulin to bind the antivenom. It has a different sort of profile.
Good, great.
So to answer his question, up here in eastern North Carolina, there's 2 available antivenoms for snake bite, and any pit viper that comes in, they're going to be FDA approved for treatment of those pit viper bites.
I have a question, and you can repeat my question because they can't hear me. Does that snake enjoy what you're doing there?
There's a question from one of our management team that you didn't hear broadcast over the air. Does Cornelius enjoy what I'm doing? Probably not as much as I'm enjoying it.
He's not trying to get away.
No, well, because we bonded.
They're best friends.
We're BFFs, BSFs. So, Dougie, who you met a month ago, is going to be jealous. So, is joy something that snakes experience? I think it's your pet, so.
I believe, I was speaking about earlier, Cornelia likes to rest her head on like the edge of my cage and just kind of looks at me. And that's usually when I take her out and hang out with her and play with her.
So she communicates.
It's like taking your dog for a walk.
Yeah.
You let her climb around, you let her hang out. I do think she enjoys it. She needs the exercise and she loves to explore, so she's always getting herself into some kind of little hole somewhere trying to escape. But
yeah, we had a funny almost near escape story that Camille figured out. You can tell about that near escape story. The snakes are escape artists, but I'd love to hear that story.
Snakes are absolutely escape artists. While she's never tried to, my cage is pretty secure. It's lock and key, so you can just lock her up. But I did take her out one day and I set her down on the ground for, I swear, like 2 seconds. And I turned back around and her body is halfway up this little tiny hole under my sink, under my counter. And I grabbed her and I tried to pull, but snakes are so much muscle and she was not coming out. So thinking fast, I grabbed a frozen mouse, which is what she eats, which is what pet snakes eat. And I just put it under the hole and waited for her to come out. And she did eventually. She smelled the mouse and she was like, okay, I'll come out for food, I guess. But she's an escape artist. Snakes will find their way out of anything, for sure.
Tell us what effects the pandemic has had on snake population.
That's a good question, and so we study this, and I got an epidemiologist friend over at Vidant who documents all the snake bites that come into eastern North Carolina, and I was kind of curious. I was like, well, like sometimes we'll say, well, how is snake bite activity affected by hurricanes or the pandemic? And I just looked, and it was and so people would be like, well, I would theorize that there would be maybe more people outside as opposed to at work and inside during the pandemic, and they're outside trying to walk around, so more people are getting snake bitten. But it wasn't the case. The actual case was there was a lot less snake bites with the pandemic. I just think that there weren't as many people moving around at all. And to have snake bites, you got to have people moving and snakes moving at the same time, and they collide and get bitten, you know. So.
And it's always a defensive move on the snake.
That's right. Snakes are not attacking us or trying to prey or eat us or anything. Snakes just bite out of they bite humans out of self-defense.
Right. It's best to leave them alone, relocate them, and respect them as a part of God's birth.
Respect the snake. It's a good rule. It's a good rule
And
of
I also
thumb.
do have a little bit of a theory that might play into that. Most of when the pandemic happened, it was colder weather, especially toward the later months. So snakes usually come out like earlier when there's a copperhead in Dr. Mark's yard. They like to bask in the sun. They like to be on the concrete. So maybe during the winter months and times like that, it's a lot less likely to see snakes out because they're cold. They like the sun.
Yeah, I think that snakes and pandemics, they don't really necessarily go hand in hand, you know.
Well, that brings us close to ending today's show with Dr. Bush and his lovely daughter. She's 15, going on 18. And thank you for bringing your children with you.
Absolutely.
And your demonstration. It was wonderful.
Absolutely.
2 points before we go. One is get your vaccine. The virus is killing people. And for those who think that the vaccination is dangerous, you're just simply not educated. Please listen to science, not to politics, and save your life and those of your families.
And that's your next show, Doctor.
Yeah. The next show is going to feature Dr. Glenn McNichol. He runs not only our practice, but the pain management portion of our practice. You don't have to live in pain is our practice's motto. And he's a specialist in getting rid of pain without surgery. And he's going to detail that for us in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, everybody. Especially the guests who called in. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Call the Doctor.
Hi, Jerry here at the Tar River Flea Market, where you can find just about anything you want or need. From appliances to lawn equipment, from musical instruments to watches, from jeans to handcrafted jewelry, from pots to peanuts and popcorn, from electronics to ice cream, from coins to fragrant burning oils. The Tar River Flea Market has 40,000 square feet of indoor shops and 12 acres of outdoor vendors. Open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 9 to 5. Highway 301, South Rocky Mountain. See you there.